Hello everybody, my name is Craig Bennett, and today I'm going to get into a video on how you can create your own live stream with a wireless IP camera. Now, with this in mind, I'm going to mention that this is going to be a bit detailed, and I'm mostly making this so I can reference back to it, because how I made this, it should be so stable where it has a complete hands off on it. So with that one in mind, I'll leave timestamps down below. That way you can jump to portions you care about. But as far as what you're seeing, unfortunately, there's not much movement going on. You know, it's midnight and whatever. But what I have is the beehives. They are live streamed. In the on the bottom left, we have inside the hive, the internal stuff, and the above that it has the external, the actual weather and stuff. So how do you get something like this, and how would you get it to be stable and whatnot? So let's talk about what devices you need and what do you need in order to do this. Well, first things first is you're obviously going to need to have an IP camera, network, and all the other stuff. And what you will need for a IP camera, I'll recommend, if it's an outdoor camera, go with a rating IP66 or higher. What I found, I'm in North Carolina, so we get hurricanes, we get 100 degrees weathers, we get in the 10 degrees or even slightly below 10 degrees weather at times. We get ice, we get hail, we get tornadoes, we get everything. So the fact of the matter is I found the IP65, it tends not to last more than a year, maybe a year and a half at best, but it tends to be a year. If the only way I found it to last, really and truly, is if it's under protection. Like if you got a overhang or something like that, that's the only way I found it to last. Otherwise, it just simply doesn't. So what you need to go with is a IP66 or higher. This big thing to note is this is the same thing they use on cargo ships. So it's meant for heavy seas, powerful jets of water, and stuff like that. Whereas the IP65 is meant more for lights, drizzles, and you know, normal rains and stuff like that. Nothing like a hurricane, no ice, none of that. It's also, if you want, and if you can get IP67, go for that. IP68, go for that. Most likely you ain't going to be able to find IP68s. So note that. And if the price is a little bit much for you, note this. If you spend money on IP66, then you're probably going to spend what, 10, 20 bucks more, but you're going to save more money over the long run, because otherwise replacing these things, IP65s, will eat your lunch at the end of the day when you're comparing it to IP66 or higher. So other things with IP cameras that you got to keep in mind is, if you can get your hands on the camera before you buy it, or if you can ask the store clerk with this, is make sure it has a actual filter, IR filter within it. So if you can get your hands on the camera before you buy it, go and see if you can plug it in and put your finger, after it's initialized and whatever, it might take a minute or two, go ahead and put your finger on the light sensor, and the light sensor thinks it's dark and whatever it may be. If you hear a physical click, if you hear a click, then it probably has an IR filter. If not, it's using some type of software base. And what that means is, if it has a IR filter, you're getting actual colors, or closest to actual colors you can get. Well, if it doesn't have an IR filter, blacks look purple, grass looks purple, all this other crap looks purple, and you're getting off colors, and it looks bad all around, but you're also getting off colors. So it's a big thing to note into itself. There's other things. Make sure that I will leave something on screen. I forgot what it's called, but make sure that the camera can stream in that. I think it's RSTP port. if and this is the only time that this doesn't matter, if you're only streaming the camera and it's not going to be used as a security camera or anything else, so you're not going to be viewing it while you're streaming. Like, say for example, if you stream the stuff and you had a security camera going at the same time, the security camera software going at the same time, so you got two things trying to pull out of one feed, well, there'll be a fight between the two and it'll be just a bad day all around. The image will flicker and do all this weird stuff. But if you're using an RSTP, then basically you can stream this to multiple things and you won't have that problem. Now, if you're only streaming it out, or if you're just only using a security camera and that's it, then that's fine. You use whatever you can get and you should be fine. Oh, and another thing that you got to keep in mind is, do you need a wide field, wide angle or not? The wide angle will allow you to see more left and right. Do you need to see more up and down? And all this other stuff, just keep that stuff in mind. But you know, it's pretty straightforward from there. So from there, you're also going to need to have the broadcasting software. This is what streams it out to YouTube. So from here, what you're going to need is have Windows, Mac, or Linux. I have a video on how to make a old computer into a security camera server, and I will leave a link down below to that. But you can actually add this into that. So since that computer's coming up all the way, always anyways, so that way you got something that will be streaming and you don't have to worry about, oh, do you want to play a game or not? Because the thing that a lot of people might not know is streaming does take a lot of processing power. And if you don't give it enough processing power, like if you're using it for gaming or CAD or whatever, then what happens is you basically create problems on the viewer's end. On your end, it looks fine, except for the errors that probably will pop up. But what would end up happening is on the viewer's end, it will skip. You're talking about 20-second skips commonly, or even a minute skip, or it will do some weird stuff. This will prevent from doing that. So it will basically make it where you won't have that type of problem, because all it is a security camera server with streaming abilities. So from there, you will need to have VLC. Make sure that you get 2.2.4. The newer one right now at this time of this video being made doesn't work. What happens is the newer ones, they don't work with OBS for whatever reason. And what people are finding is 2.2.4, and there's quite a few other versions. They work with OBS, and basically you can use VLC to help you stream and not have problems. Now, for those of you who have bees or wondering how I get the temperature and all the other stuff with the bees, this is it. Lacrosse Technology, their stuff. I'll leave a link down below to this. It's an Amazon affiliate link, so you buy from it and I will get a kickback from it. But as far as that goes, that's pretty much about it. Now, one thing I want to mention is something that you can probably do is see if you can stream from a Raspberry Pi or something like that. If it has enough processing power and stuff like that, and you're not doing anything else with it, then you should be fine. But the big thing to note is that is also a possibility. So you can pick up those for like $35. I haven't personally tried it, so I can't tell you if that will work or not. But given it has enough processing power, then I don't see why that won't be a problem. So first things first, to set things up, this is my security system, whatever. I actually got a video on how to make a whole computer into a security camera server, and please check that out. It's also got videos on Multiplicity, which is a wireless KVM. Check that out. That way you can remotely control a computer, and that way you don't have to be sitting right there in front of it. So with that one in mind, what you need to do is run iSpy and then go to add, go to wizard and add the camera. All you need to know is the IP address and the username and password. From there, towards the end of it, you will get a link, and from there, try to, if you are given an option of H.264 or FFmpeg, take that option if possible. Otherwise, you have to take one of the others. The reason why you would take this is, as I mentioned before, if you're streaming from multiple places, FFmpeg, it doesn't really mess up, whereas the others, it can mess up, and it does mess up. So just note that. Otherwise, if you're streaming directly to the OBS and that's it, then you can do whatever you want. But from there, you're going to need to go to the camera after the setups and whatever's done. Go to the camera, go to edit, and go to source and click the dots and copy the URL right there. And that's all you really need from that. So from there, if we go to VLC, make sure you open up VLC before OBS and go all the way down to media and then network, and then put in the URL there and press play. So from there, sometimes it shows up, sometimes it doesn't. Don't worry about the second. Most of the time it will show up, but I found sometimes it doesn't show up. And still, what you need to do from here is go into OBS and just open up OBS and then add a VLC video source, and you can name it whatever you want. But what we want to do is go here, add path, and paste in that link again to here, and press OK. And what happens is it should be shown here. Whatever shows here will be shown on the screen. So if it doesn't work, you can leave it alone for a while and come back to it. Sometimes it takes a minute or two, like a literal minute or two, to show up. Sometimes not so much, so keep that in mind. If it does take a while, then it takes a while. If not. But with that one in mind, once you have that set up, why won't you use media source like I have here? Why do I not use VLC on this right here? Well, I have VLC, a newer version of VLC, so it wouldn't work here. But with media source, the advantage to it is it still works. However, if the camera goes down for a split second, it won't reconnect. With VLC, it does reconnect, and that way you don't have to sit there and babysit it or anything like that. And that's what I found to be the biggest problem with the media source. Is if it wasn't for the reconnection issue, where it just simply doesn't matter what URL you put in there, as long, like, the URL works, whatever. Doesn't matter the settings you put, whatever. It doesn't want to reconnect, and many others are having the same problem. But everybody's fine if you just use VLC. That fixes it right there. So with that, that's something to keep in mind. Now, as far as things goes, going into here, how did we add a this, and this? One thing I will recommend that you do is, by the way, is if you are live streaming currently, open up another OBS and then play around with this. And what you can do is get it right, stop your stream on the other OBS, start your stream on a new one, and the way you go. What I found is the problems you run into is you can actually, people will see you moving it around. Like, say for example, if I was streaming this, you can see me moving this stuff around in real time, obviously with whatever delay to get the information there, but still. So note that. But anyways, for this and this, what you need to do is go into browser and then, tile it, whatever, and then go ahead and put in the browser location. Just try to get as close as possible where you need it. And big thing to note is I found if you keep this in, then you can run into some problems. So let me copy this real quick, and let's go ahead and kill this off. Let's go ahead and go to properties, and let's go to that. So let it refresh and give it a second or two. And what I found, let's go ahead and, what is it, San Francisco? Let's just use theirs. And what I found is like right here. So this might look cool. It will actually make it look like a widget and whatever. That might be the effect that you want. So cool if that's it. And that way you can, have that floating there, and I can show you how to size it down to get to that. But the big thing to note is like right here, black text and black background doesn't mix. So you can run into problems like that. And if I go in to the station itself, let's scroll down a little bit. And as soon as it tries to update, it will try to change colors. So note that it will right there, the black text and black background, it doesn't mix. Now if you're going to place and it doesn't have that problem, then great. Then what happens is basically you got something that looks cool, looks like you got a widget on the screen and whatever it may be. But a way to fix that, if you want, is just take this out, go to where you want, go to interact, give it a second or two. Like right here, let's go to San Francisco. And in fact, let's size this down to that. But you see right here, it will stay with that. It won't change the background or any of that stuff. So let's say, for example, this is what you're looking for. Oh, and by the way, this is what happens with media source is the camera didn't give out. The camera gave out for a split second, enough to cause this, not enough where the viewer will see any difference at all, like literally. Because most of these cameras you're talking about 30 frames per second, and it might, went out a frame or less. And what happens is it just completely went out on here, and then you got to reset it by going into the media source and pressing OK. And that's it. Not even changing the setting or anything like that. That's the reason why you'll use VLC, is to get around that resetting part. But since we're not worried about that now, and that part's done, let's move on to over this. So what you need to do to resize that is go to transform, go to edit transform, and from here what you can do is resize the stuff here. Now one big thing I want to note is if you go to properties, one thing that you should think about doing is adjusting the width here. What I found is sometimes if you go to transform, edit transform, if you adjust it here, sometimes it doesn't go right. So it's best to, if you have an idea of what you want to start with, then adjust it there. Otherwise, you can try adjust it here to see if it looks right. If it doesn't look right, then go back to properties, adjust it there, go back to wherever you need it to be, and we can still refresh the page and all the other stuff, and then go to there. So from there, what we need to do is down here, it's the basically the scaling. So say for example, if we have all this to 0, then this is what is going to be seen. Whereas if we have it to what we had before, we just cut off all that crap, and that way it's not hogging up the video. So what we can do is, and notes if that's good enough, then that's good enough. And you just want like something like a widget, like what we're talking about, then you can do that. So from here, this is what the user will see for that area. Now notice you can resize it and whatever, it's just fine. But let's say, for example, we want that back there so we can get the widget looking thing. So let's go back to San Francisco. And there we go. And just give it a, a little bit to update. And whenever it updates, it will hopefully go transparent. So with that, you will get a cool looking widget looking thing, given that it works with you. Otherwise, you have that. So with that in mind, what about settings? So here's the thing is with the settings is I found you need to aim for lowest CPU usage as possible. Oh, and this, all it is a text. Just go into text, go here and just add your text, whatever. And resize it here and do all your stuff here if possible, whatever you can do here versus anywhere else. And then go ahead and do what you need everywhere else if need to be. And that way you don't have to deal with jagged edges or any of that stuff because it's upscaling it and whatever. So as far as that goes, what about settings? So as far as settings goes, go into settings folder. Give it a second or two. And first things first is I would go through here and see what needs to be changed. Make sure that the frames per second is proper. Like if the camera is only 15 frames per second, use 15 frames per second. If it's 30, then use 30. And also same thing with outputs. Make sure that. Now, one thing I found is you may want to use this to raise or lower your CPU usage. The biggest thing I found out is if your CPU usage gets used up pretty easily, then and right here there's the widget effect that I was talking about. So you have that, and that way you can have something that looks kind of cool. But anyways, as far as this goes with CPU usage, what I found is if your CPU gets used up, then from your end it looks great, but if you go on YouTube or whatever it may be, the encoder, it will put off errors saying that it's being overloaded down here. And if you take a look into it, basically the encoder is not able to keep up and all the other stuff. So biggest two things you can do is lower the frames per second and also mess around with this, raise this to ultra fast and maybe or whatever. Lower is worse. But and that will basically make it where it won't use as much as your CPU. Trust me, because if you're doing 2 streams or something like that, that can be a major problem. And keep in mind that just because things are looking good right now, maybe later on it might not be. So you need to have this as low as possible. But also keep in mind, if you have something like ultra fast, then problems might show up a little bit more often from the camera itself. Super fast or even this other stuff might hide it a little in my experience, but not by a too big amount. So I'll just note that also. What I would do is try to aim for ultra fast if all possible, if not super fast. And what that will do is that will make it where your CPU usage be low as possible. That is your biggest thing that will eat up your CPU usage. So with that one in mind, just note that. Now, as far as your stream goes, what you need to do is go and set up a stream. So how do you go about doing that? So how do you start streaming now that you have things set up? So what you need to do is, now that you got your settings set up and you just need to get your stream key and all that, go to YouTube, go all the way down to live stream. You might have to activate it. That takes 24 hours to activate, so note that. But if you have already, then do that now. So it starts at 24 hours. I don't know why they got that time limit. But you might want to go stream now, but I wouldn't do that. See, stream now, if your stream goes out for a minute or something like that, then it kills the stream altogether. So you want to go with events. See, the events, you have to manually shut it off, and that way you have a lot more control and stuff. So with that, start a new event and call it whatever you want. So, whatever. All this you can change, but there's a few things you can't. Go and click custom here. Make sure that this is public or unlisted or whatever. Go to events and change the category to what you want. Deal with the chat like you want. If you want there or not, then do whatever. And from there, go all the way down and select automatically start the event when you start sending data. And that way, if it's 24 hours, you can just start it. So otherwise, you have to manually tell it start. But anyways, as far as that goes, go down to automatically make archive unlisted once the stream has ended. And what this does is, whether the stream's been 1 minute or 500 days or whatever, it will actually save that, archive it into your video list. It'll leave it as unlisted, but it'll immediately start processing it, and that way you have a backup of the stream. So again, if you're using this like for security cameras for a shop, you can have everything as private or unlisted. And then what happens is when you stop the stream because someone robbed the store and you got a copy of it, you can actually go ahead and stop the stream. It'll automatically start processing it. And whenever it's done, you can trim it to the part that you need, or just send the cops the link, and there you go. So that's pretty straightforward on itself. Make sure that DVR is enabled. I'll show you why in a second or two, but there's no reason not to have that enabled. As far as normal latency, make sure you click that unless you need to for any other stuff, but normal latency should be fine. I would not add any delay. That actually can cause problems in my experience. Now, as far as the rest of the stuff, you can go through and figure it out on your own. But that's big things that you need to know is chat, the archive, the DVR, and the delay and all that. So from that, let's go ahead and create the event. So give it a second or two. So you have two options. You can use single use stream key, and what this basically means is you stop streaming, the key is no longer used, and go on your own way. The benefit to do this is, let's say for example you go off and someone else is streaming for you. I don't know, gaming or whatever. Well, the fact is you don't have to worry about them screwing around with your stuff. Of course, you can make a reusable key and just delete it afterwards, but this way you don't have to do the deletion portion. So the reusable key, we're going to be using that, is go ahead and go to create, name it whatever you want, and the big thing to note is the maximum is, you need to make sure that's right, so otherwise you get the wrong resolution. So my camera's put out 1080 and not 4K or anything like that, so not that. Also, with the frames per second, note the more frames per second, more the bit rate. But the big thing to note is, if like my camera's only 30 frames per second, there's no reason for me to enable that. That's just stupid. So note that. So we're going to save that, and then down here we're going to go ahead and copy that into, if we go to settings, go to stream, paste that right there after you select YouTube. And what that does is that will allow you to stream to this particular one. So from there, and if you don't see this, then go down to other encoders. And if you got closed captions, whatever, you can do that. But from there, you can go to live control. But before I go there, how do you remove that that thing? Is just click manage and just delete or edit, and that way you can do what you need to do. So from there, and yeah, so I have to work on that later, so I can delete that. Oh, and as far as this code right here, since I'm going to delete it, I don't mind showing it, but do not ever show this code to anyone that doesn't need it. Basically, if someone has it, what can easily happen is someone can start streaming on your stuff, and they can stream porn or whatever, and that can cause problems altogether. So that can, you know, get you kicked, and major problems can happen with that. A number of people have had that problem in the past, so it's a big thing to note. If you go to live controls, note that it will say if it's gotten any data, and if it's gotten any data, then it'll say so, and they'll say some information from there. And if you have it on automatic, then it will just automatically, once it gets data, it will automatically start stream. Otherwise, it will have preview it. You look at it, and then you press OK. Make sure that the everything's good, and that way it will start. So from that, let's go into after you started streaming. So after you started streaming, what you have an option is if you go to live control room, this is where your information's at. So what this shows is, you know, if you're live or not. Again, you have to manually stop the stream. This is the reason why I like the events versus the stream now, because again, the events, I can actually stop it if I need to. So if something happens or whatever, I can do that. And then with live events, with the live, I can see how long I've been. So for this case, it's 16 hours. So with that, so you also have the status, so if it's good, if it's bad, or whatever. So note that. And if it says bad, take a look at the encoder, make sure that it's not being overloaded with stuff, and the processing, it's using up all your processor and stuff. Otherwise, and it could be your net and viewer things, but just note that. Now, with that, it shows the some information I can get into in a second. So going down a little bit on this particular page, you can set the broadcast alerts. I find them to be about useless. Slates, you can look into more of that. And again, if you have monetization turned on, you have to manually insert ads. So again, that's a narrow reason why you won't make money off doing this. Now, let's talk about making videos off of your stream. So this is the current live stream. So I had a possum that came through my area earlier, and let me see if I can find him. Looks like about around here. So what I can do is figure out, oh, there's an interesting event. Possum's near my beehives and whatever and doing its thing, or there's a deer, or there's something else. So I can go to the start of whatever said event, and then that you want to be the start of the video, and then set start. And what happens is it will start. It will know to say your video you're trying to make that's going to be the starting point, and then obviously find the end, and then set in, and then upload, and then from there it will just take you up to the video manager, and you can do the edits as need be, title and whatnot, and that way you can upload it and people can see it, and that way you don't have to stop the stream and all the other stuff. You can do this midway. But again, you can't do this if you basically make sure your DVR's on this. Again, you can roll back 4 hours, and you can't do this if it's beyond 4 hours. So note that. Otherwise, you have to go into here and stop it and do all the other stuff. But given that, going down to analytics. If you go to analytics, this will show you information about how many people are currently viewing your stuff. Keep in mind that you count as a viewer. If it's playing, then you count as a viewer. This is not unique views or anything. This is not unique playbacks or anything like that. So note that. So if someone, watched it, stopped watching it for 5 minutes, then started watching it and go back and forth, that can jack with your numbers. But honestly, people ain't going to do that. Then you got average view duration. So this should tell you, is your stuff interesting? Is it not? And whatever it may be. And note that, again, your stuff can skew with that. So note that. Then below that, we have the peak. And this is pretty important. So let's say, for example, if you're playing games or if you are doing this, well, what I can see is, at 4:30 to 5 o'clock, people are really, really interested. What is going on right here? Because can it be recreated? Well, at the time, bees were coming in. A lot of bees were coming in, and people like to watch that for some reason. So, got quite a few views at that point of time. So it peaked. Well, the thing is if you can recreate that, great. Otherwise, it's just useful information to make sure that, if something goes wrong, maybe at this time we can try to fix it. The stream can be down or whatever. Whereas this time it's really not a good idea to work on things because the stream might be up and whatever. So it's pretty good to note that. And also, again, with the size and whatever, you can make that as what you will. And again, on the bottom right, we have the chat and the video. That's pretty much about it when it comes to this. So with this, I can literally go off and walk away and both my hands be up, and as long as